The Humiliated Father I, Part 3 of 4. You will have already perceived from the resonance of her name, literally neck fountain, that she was one of the old guard, ci devant, nobles who refused to be reconstituted into the new social order, of those who had been, amongst other things, dispossessed of their privileges and their wealth by the Revolution. And hence, since this time, Signe de Couffontaine, remaining in France whilst her cousin had emigrated, had been engaged in the painstaking task of gathering back together all the elements of the Couffontaine domain. In the text, this is not simply a question of tenacious miserliness. This is represented as commensurate with, co-dimensional with this pact with the land that, for both characters, as well as for the author who speaks through them, is identical to the constancy, the values of nobility itself. I beg you to have a look at the text. We will continue to talk about it. You will see the limits, otherwise admirable, in which this tie to the land is expressed as such, which is not simply a factual tie but a mystical one, which is equally the one around which a whole order of allegiance is defined, that is properly speaking the feudal order, which unites in a single bundle this tie that can be called ties of kinship, with ties to a locality around which everything that defines lords and their vassals is ordered, birthright, patron-client ties. I can't point out all these themes in a few words. This here is not the object of our own research. I think that, at another time, you can get as much of an idea as you would like by referring to the text. It is in the process of this enterprise, hence, based on the dramatic, poetic exaltation recreated in front of us of certain values, which are values ordered according to a certain form of speech, that has just been unsettled by the disturbance constituted by the presence of the émigré cousin, absent, but who has, on the other hand, over the course of the preceding years, made several appearances in Signe de Couffontaine's world, clandestinely. Once again reappears accompanied by a personage of whom the identity is not revealed to us, and who is none other than the Supreme Father, the Pope, of whom the whole presence in the drama will be defined for us as that of literally taking him to be the representative on earth of the Celestial Father. It is around this figure, escaped figure, for it is with the help of Signe de Couffontaine's cousin that he happens to be there, in hiding from the forces of the oppressor. It is around this personage that the drama is going to play out, as a third character emerges here, this one being Baron Tourelleur, Toussaint Tourelleur, whose persona is going to dominate the whole trilogy. Of this Toussaint, the whole character is outlined in such a way as to make us horrified by him, as if this character was not already villainous and wicked enough in coming to torment such a charming woman, but on top of that he comes to blackmail her. Young lady, I have desired and loved you for a long time, but now that you have this old eternal pappy staying with you, I will trap him and throttle him if you don't give in to my demands. It is not by accident, you can well see it, that I give the knot of this drama an air of a Punch and Judy connotation. As if he wasn't already villainous and wicked enough, the old Tourelleur is presented to you with all the attributes not only of cynicism but ugliness. It is not enough for him to be wicked, he is also shown to us as lame, a bit twisted, hideous. On top of that, it is him who has cut off the heads of all the people in Signe de Couffontaine's family in the good old days of '93, and in the most open way, as if he still has the lady to do. On top of this, he is the son of the charmer and a woman who had been Signe de Couffontaine's nurse, and hence servant. Hence, when she marries him, she will be marrying the son of a charmer and her servant. Wouldn't you say that there is here, all the same, something that goes a little far in a particular direction to touch the hearts of the audience, for whom these old stories have, however, taken on a slightly different emphasis, i.e., that the French Revolution has all the same, in what followed, shown itself to be something that is not to be judged uniquely from the perspective of the martyrdom suffered by the aristocracy. It is very clear that it is not from this perspective that it can in any way be received, as I believe the hostage has been received by audiences. I can't even say that its audience extends very far in our nation, but it cannot be said either that those who have attended a performance of this piece, besides with it coming quite late in our history, have uniquely been comprised of, I can't say the Count of Paris's supporters, for as everyone knows the Count of Paris is very progressive. Let's say those who are nostalgic for the Count of Chambord's time. It is rather an advanced, cultivated, informed audience who, watching Claudel's The Hostage, feel the shock, let's take the opportunity to call it tragic shock, that is entailed in what follows. But in order to understand what is involved in this emotion, i.e., that not only does it work for spectators, but that just as well, I promise you, in reading it, you will have no doubt that this work in the theatrical tradition has all the rights and merits related to what is presented to you as its greatest exemplars. Where is the secret of what it makes us feel via a story that is presented with these exaggerated features, pushed, I insist, right up to a kind of caricature? Let's go a bit further. Doesn't it make you stop at the thought that this is what is always evoked in us by the suggestion of religious values? That's just as well, for we need to make a stop there now. The turning point, the most important scene, the highlighted scene of the drama, is the one in which the vehicle of the request, to which Cine de Coufontaine is going to give in, is not the horrible character, and, as you will see, not only horrible but also central for what follows in the trilogy, of Toussaint Tireleur, but her spiritual guide, i.e. a kind of saint, Badilon the curate. It is at the moment when Cine de Coufontaine is not only like the one who is there, having kept to, through all the winds and storms, her vocation of preservation, but who, much more, at the moment when her cousin has just found her again, just then learns at the same time that he has just experienced in his own life, to his own person, the most bitter betrayal. He has realized after many years that for his wife, who he loves, he had only been a tool to be kept in the dark all this time, with him being the only one not to know, that she was, in other words, the mistress of the one who, in Paul Claudel's text, is called the Dauphin. There was never an émigré Dauphin, but we don't need to worry about that. What it's about is showing the disappointment, the truly tragic isolation of the principal characters Cine de Coufontaine and her cousin. Things don't stop there. Some cock and bull story has got rid of not only the important figure of the cousin's wife, but of his young children, his descendants. And so he arrives there, deprived of everything by fate, deprived of everything but his constant support for the royal cause, and in a dialogue that is, in short, the tragic point of departure of what is to follow, Cine and her cousin commit themselves before God. Nothing, not in the present, nor in the future, will allow them to opt out, passer à l'acte, of this commitment. Instead, they are both committed beyond everything that is possible or impossible. They have sworn one to the other. When Badilon the curate comes to request from Cine de Coufontaine not just this or that, but that she considers this, that to refuse what the villain Tireleur has already proposed to her, in short, she finds herself being the key to this historic moment in which the father of all the faithful will or will not be handed over to his enemies. Certainly Badilon the saint does not, correctly speaking, impose any duty. He goes further. It is not even to her strength that he appeals, he says, and Claudel writes, but to her weakness. He shows her, opens up the abyss in front of her, of this acceptance through which she will become the agent of a sublime act of deliverance, but through which, take good note, everything is done to show us that by doing this she must renounce in herself something that goes further than, of course, any attraction, any possible pleasure, even any duty, but further than what is her very being, than the pact that has always tied her to her fidelity towards her own family. She has to marry the person who has exterminated her family, renounce the sacred engagement she has just made with the person she loves, to something that carries her, properly speaking, not to the limit of her life, for we know that this is a woman who would sacrifice her life, as she has demonstrated in the past, but that which for her, as for every being, is worth more than her life, not only her reason for living, but that in which she recognizes her very being. And hence, here we are, via what I am provisionally calling this contemporary tragedy, carried, properly speaking, up to the limits, which are those that I taught you last year are approached in Antigone, up to the limits of the second death, with the exception that here it is the hero, the heroine, who is required to cross over them. For if I showed you last year what a tragic destiny signifies, if I managed, I think, to get you to locate it in a topology that we call Sardian, i.e. in this locus that has been baptized here as that of, as I understand by my listeners, the between two deaths, if I showed that this locus is crossed over by passing, not as one says as a kind of mantra, beyond good and evil, something that is a great formula for obscuring what it is about, but beyond beautiful, the thing that explodes in the Sophoclean text from the moment that, with Antigone having crossed over the limit of condemnation, as not only accepted but provoked by Creon, the chorus erupts, singing Eros invincible in combat. I am reminding you of these terms in order to show you that here, after 20 centuries of the Christian era, it is beyond this limit that the drama of Cine de Coufontaine carries us. There where the ancient heroine is identical to her destiny, ate, to this law, divine law for her, that carries her into the trial, which is against her will, against everything that determines her, not in her life but in her being, whilst the other heroine, through an act of liberty, must go against everything that her being holds dear, right up to its most intimate roots.